Chapter 7 of Pushing to the Front by Orison Swett Marden. Chapter 7. How Poor Boys and Girls Go to College. Can I afford to go to college? Asks many an American youth who has hardly $1 to his name and who knows that a college course means years of sacrifice and struggle. It seems a great hardship, indeed, for a young man with an ambition to do something in the world to be compelled to pay his own way through school and college by hard work. But history shows us that the men who have led in the van of human progress have been, as a rule, self-educated, self-made. The average boy of today who wishes to obtain a liberal education has a better chance by 100-fold than had Daniel Webster or James A. Garfield. There is scarcely one in good health who reads these lines, but can be assured that if he will, he may. Here as elsewhere, the will can usually make the way, and never before was there so many avenues of resource open to the strong will, the inflexible purpose, as there are today, at this hour and this moment. Of the 5,000 persons, students, directly connected with Harvard University, writes a graduate, 500 are students entirely or almost entirely dependent upon their own resources. They are not a poverty-stricken lot, however, for half of them make an income above the average allowance of boys in smaller colleges. From $700 to $1,000 are by no means exceptional yearly earnings of a student who is capable of doing newspaper work or tutoring, branches of employment that pay well at Harvard. There are some men that make much more. A classmate of the writer entered college with about $25. As a freshman, he had a hard struggle. In his junior year, however, he prospered, and in his last 10 months of undergraduate work he cleared above his college expenses, which were none too low, upward of $3,000. He made his money by advertising schemes and other publishing ventures. A few months after graduation, he married. He is now living comfortably in Cambridge. A son of poor parents, living in Springfield, New York, worked his way through an academy. This only whetted his appetite for knowledge, and he determined to advance, relying wholly on himself for success. Accordingly, he proceeded to Schenectady and arranged with a professor of Union College to pay for his tuition by working. He rented a small room which served for study and home, the expense of his bread and milk diet never exceeding 50 cents a week. After graduation, he turned his attention to civil engineering, and later to the construction of iron bridges of his own design. He procured many valuable patents and amassed a fortune. His life was a success, the foundation being self-reliance and integrity. Albert J. Beveridge, the junior United States Senator from Indiana, entered college with no other capital than $50 loaned to him by a friend. He served as steward of a college club and added to his original fund of $50 by taking the freshman essay prize of $25. When summer came, he returned to work in the harvest fields and broke the wheat-cutting records of the county. He carried his books with him morning, noon, and night, and studied persistently. When he returned to college, he began to be recognized as an exceptional man. He had shaped his course and worked to it. The president of his class at Columbia University recently earned the money to pay for his course by selling agricultural implements. One of his classmates by the savings of 2 years' work as a farm laborer, and money earned by tutoring, writing, and copying done after study hours, not only paid his way through college, but helped to support his aged parents. He believed that he could afford a college training, and he got it. At Chicago University, many hundreds of plucky young men are working their way. The ways of earning money are various, depending upon the opportunities for work and the student's ability and adaptability. To be a correspondent of city daily papers is the most coveted occupation, but only a few can obtain such positions. Some dozen or more teach night school. Several teach in the public schools in the daytime, and do their university work in the afternoons and evenings, so as to take their degrees. Scores carry daily papers, by which they earn $2.50 to $3.50 a week. But as this does not pay expenses, they add other employments. A few find evening work in the city library. Some attend to lawns in summer and furnaces in winter, by having several of each to care for. They earn from $5 to $10 a week. Many are waiters at clubs and restaurants. Some solicit advertisements. The divinity students, after the first year, preach in small towns. Several are tutors. 2 young men made $1,200 apiece in this way in 1 year. One student is a member of a city orchestra, earning $12 a week. A few serve in the university post office and receive 20 cents an hour. A representative American college president recently said, "I regard it as, on the whole, a distinct advantage that a student should have to pay his own way, in part as a condition of obtaining a college education. It gives a reality and vigor to one's work which is less likely to be obtained by those who are carried through college. I do not regard it, however, as desirable that one should have to work his own way entirely, as the tax upon strength and time is likely to be such as to interfere with scholarship and to undermine health. Circumstances have rarely favored great men. A lowly beginning is no bar to a great career. The boy who works his way through college may have a hard time of it, but he will learn how to work his way in life, and will often take higher rank in school and in after life than his classmate, who is the son of a millionaire. It is the son and daughter of the farmer, the mechanic, and the operative, the great average class of our country, whose funds are small and opportunities few, that the Republic will depend on most for good citizenship and brains in the future. The problem of securing a good education, where means are limited and time short, is of great importance both to the individual and the nation. Encouragement and useful hints are offered by the experience of many bright young people who have worked their way to diplomas worthily bestowed. Gauss B. Frost was graduated at the Brattleboro, Vermont, high school, taught strict schools 6 terms, and entered Dartmouth College with just money enough to pay the first necessary expenses. He worked in gardens and as a janitor for some time. During his course he taught 6 terms as principal of a high school, and 1 year as assistant superintendent in the Essex County Truant School at Lawrence, Massachusetts, pushed a rolling chair at the Columbian Exposition, Chicago, was porter 1 season at Oak Hill House, Littleton, New Hampshire, and canvassed for a publishing house 1 summer in Maine. None of his fellow students did more to secure an education. Isaac J. Cox of Philadelphia worked his way through Kimball Academy, Meriden, New Hampshire, and through Dartmouth College, doing many kinds of work. There was no honest work within the limits of his ability that he would not undertake to pay his way. He served summers as waiter in a White Mountain hotel, finally becoming head waiter. Like Mr. Frost, he ranked well in his classes, and is a young man of solid character and distinguished attainments. For 4 years Richard Weil was noted as the great prize winner of Columbia College, and for turning his time, attention, and energy to any work that would bring remuneration. He would do any honest work that would bring cash, and every cent of this money, as well as every hour not spent in sleep throughout the 4 years of his college course, was devoted to getting his education. All these and many more from the ranks of the bright and well-trained young men who have been graduated from the colleges and universities of the country in recent years believed, sincerely, doggedly believed, that a college training was something that they must have. The question of whether or not they could afford it does not appear to have occasioned much hesitancy on their part. It is evident that they did not for one instant think that they could not afford to go to college. In an investigation conducted to ascertain exact figures and facts which a poor boy must meet in working his way through college, it was found that in a list of 45 representative colleges and universities having a student population of somewhat over 40,000, the average expense per year is $304. The average maximum expense, $529. In some of the smaller colleges, the minimum expense per year is from $75 to $110. There are many who get along on an expenditure of from $150 to $200 per year, while the maximum expense rises in but few instances above $1,000. In Western and Southern colleges, the averages are lower. For example, 18 well-known Western colleges and universities have a general average expense of $242 per year, while 14 as well-known Eastern institutions give an average expense of $444. Statistics of expense and the opportunities for self-help at some of the best-known Eastern institutions are full of interest. Amherst makes a free gift of the tuition to prospective ministers, has 100 tuition scholarships for other students of good character, habits, and standing, has some free rooms, makes loans at low rates. Students have chances to earn money at tutoring, table waiting, shorthand, care of buildings, newspaper correspondence, agencies for laundries, sale of books, etc. $500 a year will defray all necessary expenses. Bowdoin has nearly 100 scholarships, $50 to $75 a year. No limits placed on habits or social privileges of recipients. Students getting employment in the library or laboratories can earn about 1/4 of their expenses. These will be for the college year, $300 to $400. Brown University has over 100 tuition scholarships and a loan fund, often remits room rent in return for services about the college buildings, requires studiousness and economy in the case of assisted students. Many students earn money in various ways. The average yearly expenditure is $500. The cost at Columbia University averages $547, the lowest being $387. A great many students who know how to get on in a great city work their way through Columbia. Cornell University gives free tuition and free rooms to seniors and juniors of good standing in their studies and of good habits. It has 36 two-year scholarships, $200, for freshmen, won by success in competitive examination. It has also 512 state tuition scholarships. Many students support themselves in part by waiting on table, by shorthand, newspaper work, etc. The average yearly expenditure per student is $500. Dartmouth has some 300 scholarships, those above $50 conditioned on class rank. some rooms at nominal rent. Requirements, economy, and total abstinence. Work of one sort or another, to be had by needy students. A few get through on less than $250 a year. The average expenditure is about $400. Harvard has about 275 scholarships, $60 to $400 apiece. Large beneficiary and loan funds, distributed or loaned in sums of $40 to $250 to needy and promising undergraduates. Freshmen, usually, barred. A faculty employment committee. Some students earning money as stenographers, typewriters, reporters, private tutors, clerks, canvassers, and singers. Yearly expenditure, exclusive of clothes, washing, books, and stationery, laboratory charges, membership in societies, subscription and service, $358 to $1,035. The University of Pennsylvania in a recent year gave 315 students $43,242 in free scholarships and fellowships. No requirements except good standing. No money loaned, no free rooms. Many students support themselves in part, and a few wholly. The average expenditure per year, exclusive of clothes, railway fares, etc., is $450. Wesleyan University remits tuition wholly or in part to 2/3 of its undergraduates. Loan funds are available. Beneficiaries must be frugal in habits, total abstainers, and maintain good standing and conduct. Many students are self-supporting, 35% of the whole undergraduate body earning money. The yearly expenditure is $325. Yale is pretty well off now for fellowships and prizes, remits all but $40 of term bills, in case of worthy students, regular in attendance and studious. Many such students earning money for themselves, average yearly expenditure about $600. There is a splendid chance for girls at some of the soundest and best known girls' colleges in the United States. The number of girls in the University of Michigan who are paying their own way is large. Most of them, says Dr. Eliza M. Mosher, Women's Dean of the college, have earned the money by teaching. It is not unusual for students to come here for 2 years and go away for a time in order to earn money to complete the course. Some of our most worthy graduates have done this. Some lighten their expenses by waiting on tables in boarding houses, thus paying for their board. Others get room and board in the homes of professors by giving daily 3 hours of service about the house. A few take care of children 2 or 3 hours a day in the families of the faculty. One young woman, who is especially brave and in good earnest, worked as a chambermaid on a lake steamer last year and hurried away this year to do the same. It is her aim to earn $100. With this sum, and a chance to pay for room and board by giving service, she will pay the coming year's expenses. Because it is especially difficult to obtain good servants in this inland town, there are a few people who are glad to give the college girls such employment. It is my opinion, said Miss Mary E. Woolley, president of Mount Holyoke College, that if a girl with average intelligence and energy wishes a college education, she can obtain it. As far as I know, the girls who have earned money to pay their way through college, at least in part, have accomplished it by tutoring, typewriting, or stenography. Some of them earn pin money while in college by tutoring, typewriting, sewing, summer work in libraries, and offices, and in various little ways, such as putting up lunches, taking care of rooms, executing commissions, and newspaper work. There are not many opportunities at Mount Holyoke to earn large amounts of money, but pin money may be acquired in many little ways by a girl of ingenuity. The system of compulsory domestic service obtaining now at Mount Holyoke, whereby in return for 30 or at most 50 minutes a day of light household labor, every student reduces her college expenses by $100 or $150, was formerly in use at Wellesley. Now, however, it is confined there to a few colleges. It has no foothold at Bryn Mawr, Smith, and Vassar, or at the affiliated colleges, Barnard and Radcliffe. At city colleges, like the last two mentioned, board and lodging cost more than in the country, and in general it is more difficult for a girl to pay any large part of her expenses through her own efforts and carry on her college work at the same time. A number of girls in Barnard are, however, paying for their clothes, books, car fares, etc., by doing what work they can find. Tutoring in Barnard is seldom available for the undergraduates, because the lists are always full of experienced teachers who can be engaged by the hour. Typewriting is one of the favorite resources. One student has done particularly well as agent for a firm that makes college caps and gowns. Another girl, a Russian Jewess, from the Lower East Side, New York, runs a little sweatshop where she keeps a number of women busy making women's wrappers and children's dresses. She has paid all the expenses of her education in this way. "Do any of your students work their way through?" was asked of a Bryn Mawr authority. "Some, to a certain extent," was the reply, "but not many. The lowest entire expenses of a year are between $400 and $550. This amount includes positively everything. Two girls may pay part of their expenses by taking charge of the library and by selling stationery, another by distributing the mail, and others by tutoring. Those who tutor receive $1, $1.50, and sometimes a very good one receives $2.50 a lesson. But to earn all of one's way in a college year, and at the same time to keep up in all the studies, is almost impossible, and is not often done. Yet several are able to pay half their way." A similar question put to a Vassar student brought the following response: "Why, yes, I know a girl who has a sign on the door of her room, 'Dresses pressed,' and she earns a good deal of money, too. Of course, there are many wealthy girls here who are always having something like that done, and who are willing to pay well for it, and so this girl makes a large sum of money, evenings and Saturdays. There are other girls who are agents for two of the great manufacturers of chocolate creams. The girl that plays the piano for the exercises in the gymnasium is paid for that, and some of the girls paint and make fancy articles, which they sell here or send to the stores in New York to be sold. Some of them write for the newspapers and magazines too, and still others have pupils in music, etc. in Poughkeepsie. Yes, there are many great girls who manage to pay most of their expenses. Typewriting, tutoring, assistance rendered in library or laboratory or office furnish help to many a girl who wishes to help herself in nearly every college. Beside these standard employments, teaching in evening schools occasionally offers a good opportunity for steady eking out of means. In many colleges there is opportunity for a girl with taste and cunning fingers to act as a dressmaker, repairer, and general refurnisher to students, with generous allowances. Orders for gymnasium suits and swimming suits mean good profits. The reign of the shirtwaist has been a boon to many, for the well-dressed girl was never known to have enough pretty ones, and by a judicious display of attractive samples she is easily tempted to enlarge her supply. Then, too, any girl who is at all deft in the art of sewing can make a shirtwaist without a professional knowledge of cutting and fitting. No boy or girl in America today who has good health, good morals, and good grit need despair of getting a college education unless there are extremely unusual reasons against the undertaking. West of the Alleghenies, a college education is accessible to all classes. In most of the state universities, tuition is free. In Kansas, for example, board and a room can be had for $12 a month. The college fees are $5 a year, while the average expenditure of the students does not exceed $200 per annum. In Ohio, the state university has abolished all tuition fees, and most of the denominational colleges demand fees even lower than were customary in New England half a century ago. Partly by reason of the cheapness of a college education in Ohio, that state now sends more students to college than all of New England. Yet, if the total cost is less in the West, on the other hand, the opportunities for self-help are correspondingly more in the East. Every young man or woman should weigh the matter well before concluding that a college education is out of the question. Former President Tucker of Dartmouth says, "The student who works his way may do it with ease and profit, or he may be seriously handicapped both by his necessities and the time he is obliged to bestow on outside matters. I have seen the sons of rich men lead in scholarship and the sons of poor men. Poverty under most of the conditions in which we find it in colleges is a spur. Dartmouth College, I think, furnishes a good example. The greater part of its patronage is from poor men. Without examining the statistics, I should say, from facts that have fallen under my observation, that a larger percentage of Dartmouth men have risen to distinction than those of almost any other American college. The opportunities of today are tenfold what they were half a century ago. Former President Sherman of Cornell says of his early life, "At the age of 13, I left home. I hadn't definite plans as to my future. I merely wanted to get into a village and to earn some money. My father got me a place in the nearest town, Summerside, a village of about 1,000 inhabitants. For my first year's work I was to receive $30 and my board. Think of that, young men of today, $30 a year for working from 7 in the morning until 10 at night. But I was glad to get the place. It was a start in the world, and the little village was like a city to my country eyes. From the time I began working in the store until today, I have always supported myself, and during all the years of my boyhood, I never received a penny that I did not earn myself. At the end of my first year, I went to a larger store in the same town, where I was to receive $60 a year and my board. My salary was doubled. I was getting on swimmingly. I kept this place for 2 years, and then I gave it up, against the wishes of my employer, because I had made up my mind that I wanted to get a better education. I determined to go to college. I did not know how I was going to do this, except that it must be by my own efforts. I have saved about $80 from my storekeeping, and that was all the money I had in the world. When I told my employer of my plan, he tried to dissuade me from it. He pointed out the difficulties in the way of my going to college, and offered to double my pay if I would stay in the store. That was the turning point in my life. In one side was the certainty of $120 a year, and the prospect of promotion as fast as I deserved it. Remember what $120 meant on Prince Edward Island, and to me, a poor boy who had never possessed such a sum in his life. On the other side was my hope of obtaining an education. I knew that it involved hard work and self-denial, and there was the possibility of failure in the end. But my mind was made up. I would not turn back. I need not say that I do not regret that early decision, although I think that I should have made a successful storekeeper. With my capital of $80, I began to attend the village high school. To get my preparation for college, I had only 1 year to do it in. My money would not last longer than that. I recited in Latin, Greek, and algebra all on the same day, and for the next 40 weeks I studied harder than I ever had before or have since. At the end of the year I entered the competitive examination for a scholarship in Prince of Wales College at Charlottetown on the island. I had small hope of winning it. My preparation had been so hasty and incomplete. But when the result was announced, I found that I had not only won the scholarship from my county, but stood first of all the competitors on the island. The scholarship I had won amounted to only $60 a year. It seems little enough, but I can say now, after nearly 30 years, that the winning of it was the greatest success I ever have had. I have had other rewards, which to most persons would seem immeasurably greater, but with this difference, that first success was essential. Without it, I could not have gone on. The others I could have done without, if it had been necessary. For 2 years young Sherman attended Prince of Wales College. He lived on his scholarship and what he could earn by keeping books for one of the town storekeepers, spending less than $100 during the entire college year. Afterward, he taught a country school for a year, and then went to Acadia College in Nova Scotia to complete his course. One of Mr. Sherman's fellow students in Acadia says that he was remarkable chiefly for taking every prize to which he was eligible. In his senior year, he learned of a scholarship in the University of London offered for competition by the students of Canadian colleges. The scholarship paid $500 a year for 3 years. The young student in Acadia was ambitious to continue his studies in England and saw in this offer his opportunity. He tried the examination and won the prize in competition with the brightest students in the larger Canadian colleges. During the 3 years in the University of London, Mr. Sherman became deeply interested in the study of philosophy and decided that he had found in it his life work. He was eager to go to Germany to study under the great leaders of philosophical thought. A way was opened for him through the offer of the Hubbard Society in London of a traveling fellowship with $2,000 a year. The honor men of the great English universities, like Oxford and Cambridge, were among the competitors, but the poor country boy from Prince Edward Island was again successful, greatly to the surprise of the others. At the end of his course in Germany, Mr. Sherman, then a doctor of philosophy, returned to Acadia College to become a teacher there. Soon afterward, he was called to Dalhousie University at Halifax, Nova Scotia. In 1886, when a chair of philosophy was established at Cornell, President White, who had once met the brilliant young Canadian, called him to that position. 2 years later, Dr. Sherman became dean of the Sage School of Philosophy at Cornell, and in 1892, when the president's chair became vacant, he was placed at the head of the great university. At that time, he was only 38 years of age. A well-known graduate of Amherst College gives the following figures, which to the boy who earnestly wants to go to college are of the most pertinent interest. I entered college with $8.42 in my pocket. During the year I earned $60, received from the college a scholarship of $60, and an additional gift of $20, borrowed $190. My current expenses during my freshman year were $4.50 per week. Besides this, I spent $10.55 for books, $23.45 for clothing, $10.57 for voluntary subscriptions, $15 for railroad fares, $8.24 for sundries. During the next summer, I earned $100. I waited on table at a $4 boarding house all of my sophomore year, and earned half board, retaining my old room at $1 per week. The expenses of the sophomore year were $394.50. I earned during the year, including board, $87.20, received a scholarship of $70, and gifts amounting to $12.50, and borrowed $150, all of which are just covered expenses. In my junior year I engaged a nice furnished room at $60 per year, which I agreed to pay for by work about the house. By clerical work, etc., I earned $37, also earned full board waiting upon table, received $70 for a scholarship, $55 from gifts, borrowed $70, which squared my accounts for the year, excepting $40 due on tuition. The expenses for the year, including, of course, the full value of board, room, and tuition, were $478.76. During the following summer, I earned $40. Throughout the senior year, I retained the same room, under the same conditions as the previous year. I waited on table all the year and received full board. Earned by clerical work, tutoring, etc., $40. Borrowed $40. Secured a scholarship of $70. Took a prize of $25. Received a gift of $35. The expenses of the senior year, $496.64, were necessarily heavier than these of previous years. But having secured a good position as teacher for the coming year, I was permitted to give my note for the amount I could not raise, and so was enabled to graduate without financial embarrassment. The total expense for the course was about $1,708, of which, counting scholarships as earnings, I earned $1,157. 25 of the young men graduated at college not long ago paid their way entirely throughout their courses. It seemed as if they left untried no avenue for earning money. Tutoring, copying, newspaper work, and positions as clerks were well-occupied fields, and painters, drummers, founders, machinists, bicycle agents, and mail carriers were numbered among the 25. In a certain district in Boston, there are 10,000 students. Many of them come from the country and from factory towns. A large number come from the farms of the West. Many of these students are paying for their education by money earned by their own hands. It is said that unearned money does not enrich. The money that a student earns for his own education does enrich his life. It is true gold. Every young man or woman should weigh the matter well before concluding that a college education is out of the question. If Henry Wilson, working early and late on a farm with scarcely any opportunities to go to school, bound out until he was 21 for only a yoke of oxen and 6 sheep, could manage to read 1,000 good books before his time had expired. If the slave Frederick Douglass, on a plantation where it was almost a crime to teach a slave to read, could manage from scraps of paper, posters on barns, and old almanacs, to learn the alphabet and lift himself to eminence, if the poor deaf boy Quito, who made shoes in an almshouse, could become the greatest biblical scholar of his age, where is the boy or girl today, under the American flag, who cannot get a fair education and escape the many disadvantages of ignorance? If a man empties his purse into his head, says Franklin, no man can take it away from him. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. End of Chapter 7. How Poor Boys and Girls Go to College. Recording by Luke Sartor, Brisbane, Queensland.